Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Corn Pop strikes again. He's actually signed more executive orders in his first few days of office than Donald Trump did in his first year. But this one right here, the reason why I came across the Prison Break Raw newsreel is because it's prison related. He signed an executive order eliminating private prisons, according to what some headlines are saying. Biden, with a stroke of the pen, has freed millions of people. Biden, with the stroke of a pen, has saved the African American community. All of that shit. You know the media lapdogs. They circle around Biden and do his bidding. They get on their hands and knees and act as his footstool when necessary. They wipe his ass when he shits his pants, all of that stuff. That's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. 47-year career politician that's done absolutely nothing. So, here we are, Corn Pop, eliminating the private prisons. But did he really eliminate them? Don't go still selling your stocks to CCA, to GEO, or any of those places just yet. Until after you hear this video right here. So let's break this whole thing down. So what is a private prison? I mean, I don't really need to ask you. You already know what it is. It's a corporation. It's a company, right? It's like 3 retired correctional officers get together. They rake all their money up. They buy a spot of land somewhere. They build a prison on it. They establish themselves. They come up with a name for it. They sent out a memo to all these different government agencies, one on the state or federal level, local level, county level, and they let them know, we have this prison right here. Don't stress your overcrowding. We have plenty of bed space right here. You could just pay us $5,000 an inmate a day or however much they charge, and we'll take care of all their needs. And we have security, we have correctional staff. Now, they call it correctional staff because they're not technically a correctional officer. They're like mall cops. They're security guards. You could beat the holy shit out of one of them, and they can't charge you with assaulting a peace officer. They may have, depending on whose inmates are in there, let's say it's the CDC, California Department of Corrections and Rehumiliation. So they've housed 500 of their inmates in this private prison, let's say in fucking fucking Pennsylvania somewhere. They might have a liaison over there, but that's about it. They handle everything else. They handle all the medical expenses and whatnot, all of that shit. So some of the big companies that have been out there, and California has been using the private prison system for many, many decades, all the way back to in the 90s when I was going through the system in California. People were going to places like Wackenhut. That was that company, Wackenhut CCF. So Wackenhut would be like Shafter, would be like Taft, places like that. They might have changed the name. New company might have taken those facilities over. McFarland. And you couldn't wait to get to one of these places. It was like you just won a timeshare to the Bahamas. You see the guys coming out of their counselor's office just fucking, yeah! Going to McFarland, guys! It was sweet. You didn't have to worry about a lot of the bullshit. And also, go check out Lockdown 23 and 1's episode. He just dropped his live up in the mountains. I don't know what mountains he was in. Looked pretty beautiful up there. But he dropped a piece about this. And he went into a little bit more detail about their selecting process. Well, back in the 90s, they didn't really have a selecting process in California. They took low-level offenders. You had to have low points, no violence. And yeah, you were going to a CCF. Over the years, that's evolved and that's changed. If you had violence or you had in-custody violence, you could end up in a CCF somewhere. Community Correctional Facility is what CCF stands for. So, California contracted with these places for a very long time. And then it just got to the point to where everybody's prison populations were blowing up. So California usually sets the pace for the rest of the country when it comes to corrections and all these things. The feds put out the standards, and then California will adopt some of those standards, and then the rest of the country will follow suit with California. It's the way it's always worked. If you've been in the system, you know this to be true. So many other states started to use these private prisons, these whacking huts, these CCAs. And I remember in the early 2000s, there was a propaganda video that was going out to all of us in the CDC, trying to sell this West Tennessee detention facility. Right? This went everywhere. They took a handful of inmates, God knows where they got them from, all races, all sizes and shapes, and they put them on this camera. So what do you think you're going to get when you go to this place? Oh, I don't know. A little bit more elbow room, breathing room, maybe some better food. I heard they have Sega Genesis there. I heard they have PlayStation too. All that kind of shit, you know what I mean? And then they would have the whole dramatic the jet rolling out. They all get on, they all get off. And then they're in there like, wow, look at this nice brand new clothes. Brand new boxers, look at the elastic. Oh, and they're even talking about giving us pizza tonight because we kept our dormitory so clean. They're all out there playing basketball together, laughing, patting each other on the back. It was fucking like something on Little House on the Prairie. It was ridiculous. So the next thing you know, they slid these sheets up under our doors. And they said, sign here if you want to go to a fucking outside prison. Now, mind you, I was trying to go to Nevada. Because when my father and my mother retired out there, I wanted to be closer to them. This is all around, I'd say around 2004, 2005, and they shot me down because of restitution. Now, a couple of years later, they're trying to shuffle me into this private prison, or they're not going to do it, but they're asking if I would be willing to do it. And where would I want to go? So I just put Guantanamo Bay on there and told them, fuck you, I'm not transferring out of state. You didn't want to do it when my father was alive, why am I going to do it now? So you see, they pick and choose what rules they want to apply. But technically, according to CDC rules, the California Code of Regulations, which is called the Title 15, all these different things, and I've filed a lot of these appeals for a lot of these guys. It says in the Penal Code that you cannot serve your sentence outside of the state of California for a California convicted crime. So a lot of these dudes were getting their shit overturned and getting sent back to Cali on these appeal processes, 602s. But yeah, they sold the dream. Everybody talked about the PlayStations and all that stuff and the nice food and the packages and everything everybody got. No weight pile in a lot of these places, but some of them had weight piles from what I understand. But now fast forward, 2021, President Corn Pop, the Joe and Ho Show, signed an executive order to eliminate private prisons. But like I said, did they really? They did not. Trust and believe that all of these states will continue to use private prisons. I don't care what their governors tell you. I don't care what the newspapers tell you. I don't care what the senators tell you. They're not going to just let mass murderers, armed robbers, drug dealers, and everything out onto the streets because of lack of bed space. If you think they're going to do that, you're fucking nuts. Now, yes, they're letting a lot of people out over COVID. I get that. But who are they really letting out over COVID? If you ain't got nowhere to go, and this is what I'm told, if you ain't got nowhere to go, you ain't have no official residence, you're gonna be doing what's called self-paroling. Self-paroling means you parole right to the fucking street corner. That's California. If you are in any of these circumstances, you have any wants, warrants, or detainers, you're not getting out. But yes, they're letting a lot of people out because of COVID, but they're still overcrowded. So California did a pretty big move in severing its ties for the most part. And I say for the most part because they may tell you one thing, but what they do is something totally different. Contracts with these private prisons. And what has happened is that all of the regular state prisons, the county jails, mostly the county jails have blown up beyond capacity. I mean, it's fucking a madhouse in those places. So a lot of people, because there's a lot of heat on the private prison business, and I'll give you my take on it all. But Corn Pop's executive order has done nothing for anybody. They're trying to coin it as, like I said, like it's helping the African American community. Yay! We're getting ready to go into Black History Month in February. And look at what Corn Pop has given us. He's given you nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Because private prisons that are contracted with the feds work like this. And anybody that's been in the feds, you could back me up on this. I know there's a couple of yous out there. Tim Snow, Texas Prison Stories, he's been in the feds. There might be a couple other cats out there that have been in the feds, but check this out, all right? So the GO facilities and CCAs, guess how many inmates the feds send to these places? Just take a wild guess. How many inmates? Did you say 50,000? Did you say 60,000? The answer to that question is 14,000. 14,000 out of 178,000 inmates in the federal system. 14,000. Now, what are these 14,000, you may ask? Is it all predominantly black? Racial inequality, disproportionate sentencing and everything? Poor African-American young men from the inner cities of Chicago and Detroit, are they filling up these private prisons in the feds? No, they are not. 70% of the federal prison population in private prisons are deportations. Now, that's not counting ICE facilities, right? The ICE facility, that's basically the bus stop. That's the Greyhound station to whatever country you came from. But a lot of these places down in like Pecos, Texas, even further down, most of these locations are way down there in the south. Arizona, anywhere where they can spend the least amount of money in gas to just drive you across the border and give you a boot in the ass until you don't ever come back again. Right? It's what it is. But a lot of these private prisons are in like Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Oklahoma, Louisiana, places like that. So, 14,000 people in the feds make up these private prisons. 70% of those are deportation. 70%. Right? That's like 9,800 inmates are deportations. They're not even citizens. You'll never see them again until they decide they want to cross, if they want to cross again. A lot of cats that I know, a lot of cats from my car that have been shot back over there, they're still over there. They ain't trying to come back. Fuck that. So about 4,200 people is probably black, white, Hispanic for this country, but they're considered white in the feds. Anything non-black or non-Asian is considered white in the federal demographics, in the prison population. Go look it up. I explained before why that is. So if it's like 4,200 people out of 178,000 inmates in the federal system, and I promise you that not all of those are black. A lot of them are white. A lot of them may be like Mexican Americans, Cuban Americans, stuff like that, because they use them as Spanish interpreters and stuff. They use them as support workers, cadre type workers in these facilities. And they got a sweet deal. A lot of them don't ever want to leave, man, because they got it better in there than they do out here. I'll talk to a few of these cats. So what is this big move, this mass parting of the sea that our President 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 Biden has done for the African American community in this regard? Zero. He's done zero for you. Period. But you still believe his bullshit. He could literally sell you a pound of air for 50 cents a pound. That's how much he's got all these people locked into this brainwashed bullshit. The man don't give a fuck. He's never given a fuck. He wrote the crime bill. You want to impress me, Corn Pop? Bring back parole. For some of yous out there that have been in the feds, You know what I mean. We would have loved to have gotten parole. Because it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you stab everybody in your sight or if you take every class in there. You're still doing 85% of your time. Regardless, you could rescue the warden from a fire and you're still going to do 85% of your time. No parole. How about mandatory minimums? It would seem to me the last time that I checked into like the Southern Poverty Law Center or the ACLU or Mothers Against Mandatory Minimums or any of these places like that African Americans far outpace everybody else in receiving a mandatory minimum. How come that's not an executive order, Mr. Corn Pop? Eh? How come he hasn't done nothing about the mandatory minimums, you may ask yourself? People say, be patient, one thing at a time. Well, why sever the contract with the private prisons, but leave the mandatory minimums in place? It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to you. But you may be orange man bad, Trump-hating kind of a person. Trump has enraged you and outraged you so much over the last 4 years that anything Corn Pop says must be pure and genuine. If he was to make National Book of Whammer Day, you'd be out there booking every whammer in your path. Now, I don't like any politician, right? But I ain't going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Corn Pop, you're good, Corn Pop. You're good. You're good, man. But I just fall off the fucking tomato truck last night. You got to get up earlier in the morning than that to fool this old convict right here. So 4,200 people that are going to remain in this country are ultimately affected by this. But guess what? You think they're just going to get let out of the prison system? No, they're going to get shuffled back into the FCIs and the USPs. It's exactly where they're going to go. You want to impress me? This Joe and Ho show that we have in the White House? Get rid of mandatory minimums. That'll do a big service to the African American community. Get rid of that 85%. That's a fucking... I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's like overkill, cruel, and unusual punishment. Bring back parole. When I start hearing that stuff, I will personally get on here and give a thumbs up to Corn Pop and the Ho, Camel Joe the Ho, and tell them great job. Finally, somebody has addressed this issue that is just detrimental to any kind of growth or rehabilitation whatsoever, reform, whatnot. But until then, I'm going to continue to sit here and laugh at all these gullible people that are falling for this bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. And it does nothing to help you unless, of course, you're being deported. You'll get deported faster. That's about all that's done. You already know what it is. You heard it right here. Risen, Reg, raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoat, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality. And I'm out.